Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. The goal is to be transparent and unbiased. This is not an endorsement. It's a privilege to serve you. Let's get into it.
Hey, what's going on, guys? So I am here in a beautiful wilderness area of a little bit north of Vancouver, British Columbia, and it's got some great scenery here. There's got the snow-capped mountains towards the back, the nice hills covered in beautiful trees, and a nice berm here that we've been riding on the grass. And I'm here with none other than the Biktrix Juggernaut Ultra FS. And the Biktrix Juggernaut Ultra FS has some pretty cool features that I'd love to tell you all about. So Biktrix is a Canadian company, that's how I wound up here, and they make a lot of different fat tire electric bikes that you'll see more of. This particular one has a great set of features on it. Let's start with some of the mechanical features. So this bike has some fat tires, first and foremost. These are a 26 by 4, so that's 26-inch diameter and a 4-inch width on the tread. So you can get some pretty gnarly trails with something like this and still keep a lot of balance and grip on the trail. And with this, it has a wide hub spacing here. You have 120 millimeter hub spacing between the two spots, and 12 millimeter through axle there. 13 gauge spokes, which are pretty strong both on the front of the bike as well as on the back. And this all kind of comes out on the RockShox Bluto fork that you have here, which is a wider fork that is accommodating for the fatter tires. This is actually an upgrade on the Bluto fork. You can get this bike with a different fork if you so choose. And kind of coming up to the top of the bike here towards the cockpit, one great feature that I really like about this bike is the hydraulic disc brakes. What you have here is a 180 millimeter rotor that is controlled by the hydraulic system. So in here you have some pistons that kind of clamp down the pads, and that is controlled through the hydraulic reservoir that's here up towards the handles. So it's kind of like a car, you know, if you want to think of it that way. And these are some really nice brakes that I like a lot. With some other electric bikes, depending on the use, you might not need to utilize hydraulic disc brakes, but when you have a large bike that puts out a great amount of power, such as this bike here, then having that upgraded brake system is really nice. So I think that's a great fit. You have some lock-on grips here that won't fall off due to the locking mechanism. That's a tiny little 3 millimeter bolt that's kind of on either side of these rings that hold the grip in place. So that way you can actually put some stress on these without pushing them too hard, unless you really want to. And that's what it comes down to when you're doing some pretty off-road heavy riding. So also up here on the front of the bike is where you have most of your electrical controls. So the display is right here in the dead center. The control unit on the left-hand side that has some pretty intuitive controls to it. So this is a color display that has a few colors and kind of an automotive motif. Hopefully you can see that through the sun. If not, I can put up a photo to kind of show you what it looks like. But it has some of your great readouts here since we're in Canada. Kilometers per hour, 88% on the battery is showing here, also a clock, and your pedal assist level in the middle, as well as a mode, which is kind of shown both with a green styling here as well as in the wording. So when you press the up or down arrows, that'll get you your pedal assist level up through 1 through 5. When you pull on the throttle, it'll show you the speed that you're going, assuming that you're in pedal assist. There we go. It'll kind of increase on that kind of speedometer that you have there, as well as showing you the numerical value dead in the center, which is really nice because it shows you exactly what you're looking for instantly without having to try to guess as to what it means. And when you press the information button, it'll cycle through a handful of metrics, your average speed, range, estimate. Also has a calorie counter. I'm not exactly sure how they calculate that, but pressing and holding the light button will of course turn on the front headlight. That is actually not present on this particular model. When you press and hold the plus button, this will change the bike from eco mode to sport mode. And what that does is it increases the top speed and the output. So if you're riding this bike in an area with certain laws, then you would put it onto the sport mode if you want to keep it under a classification for a moped or motorcycle, depending on your local laws. So that changes it to a higher wattage for the motor output, up to the maximum of 1000 watt nominal, 1500 for the maximum. And likewise, if you press and hold the negative button, Ooh, the bike will kind of skip up a little bit. That's actually a walk assist. If you need to carry the bike up a large steep hill, press and hold that negative button. It will power the bike just a little bit. Also on the left hand side is somewhat redundant, but you have a throttle, a nice trigger throttle here where you press down on that paddle, and depending on how far you press it will give you out a certain amount of power likewise. And of course you have the same brakes and grips on this side of the bike. So the frame does kind of have this little dip right here. So this is nice because it can accommodate people to stand over it, which is nice. Some bikes, especially road bikes, they have the top tube that comes all the way down here, and that can put some stress on sensitive areas of the anatomy. But this is a pretty nice thing that they have here, where it kind of comes down to accommodate for you standing over. It also makes it easier to get on and off the bike. When you have your left foot on yay side and your right foot kind of coming over, you don't have to lift your right foot as if you're stepping over an entire car. You can just get it up to here. So that's a good minimum height for standing over the bike. So right here you have a 300 millimeter length for the seat post here. This is a solid seat post that's holding up the Velo Plush seat. So this is a fairly thin profile for the seat. It's not terribly cushy, but it's good because it also has the aftermarket light that you see here. So the bike does come with a rear light that is here on the back of the bike. Also comes with the battery, so that's a nice little touch. They kind of come in here. This one's in the default mode, so we haven't quite popped it open to use it because we haven't ridden at night quite yet. And moving down to the fun stuff, here you have the linkage system for the rear suspension. So this is a 100 millimeter travel rear suspension. This rear suspension system does have a dial if you want to change the preload or if you want to adjust the weight to it to kind of tune it. This one is pretty tough to get to. You know, hopefully you set it up once and then you never have to bother with it again. But you'll need someone with some especially small fingers to kind of get in there and change that adjuster right there. Also coming down here, you do have the 48 volt 14 amp hour battery. That is the default size for the battery from this bike. The 4814 is really nice because it can actually get you some pretty good distance. It's already a fairly good size, but you can upgrade this to be a 4817 amp hour or a 4821 amp hour, all in the same size of casing. And that's really good. You do have a locking mechanism here to physically lock the battery into the bike frame. It's not responsible for ignition, it just physically locks the bike in. With the key out of the bike, it will still start up, but you can't get the battery out. So that's a nice little feature that they have here in this battery. Also have a main power button for the battery itself. If you sneak in there and press that button, it will show you how much battery power in a rough estimate. Moving down to the middle of the bike, you have the Bafang Ultra motor. That is a torque sensing pedal assist system. So with the Bafang motors, this one puts out a pretty hefty amount of power compared to even the rest of their lineup. This one is a 1000 watt nominal motor that can break out to 1500 for a peak rating, and that's a hefty sum. And you'll see a little bit more of that as we ride the bike. But this is a really nice motor. This is one of their newer ones that I'm really excited to try out in more of an off-road environment. So coming back to the back of the bike, you do have the same braking system right here that you also have on the front. Also, while we're in the back of the bike, we can talk about the punch outs that they have in the wheels. These are actually, believe it or not, a weight savings effort. Weight savings is something they do on a lot of traditional bikes, which is where a lot of these bicycle parts come from. When you get into the electric side, weight savings is not that big of a thing, but it's still a pretty cool design, and it certainly makes the bike stand out. What you also have back here is the SRAM 1x11 drivetrain. This is the SRAM NX model of derailleur. You have an 11 tooth on the very bottom, and you have 42 on the very top. This also uses a narrow wide drivetrain, 42 teeth up front on the chainring, as well as a 170 millimeter long cranks with the metal Welgo pedals with reflectors and the pins on top to kind of keep your feet planted. This is a pretty good selection that you have here with this drivetrain, because it's a bike that is meant to utilize the torque sensor that is inside of the motor. And with that, you really want to have more access to the gears, and you kind of want to put them through their paces more. With a bike that utilizes a cadence sensor, the pedaling and the tension that you keep on the chain is not as nearly magnified. And therefore, this is a really good setup that you have with these two components together. And that covers pretty much the rest of the mechanical and electrical parts. Let's go ahead and go for a ride. Okay, so One thing I really appreciate about this bike is that it has a torque sensing pedal assist, which is a very unique combination that you have on this bike. I mean, it really has a lot of great features in one package. It has a torque based pedal assist, it's got the throttle, it has a nice color display, it also has the 1000 watt motor, so it puts out a fair amount of power. I mean, I'm not putting it up into too high of a level because I'm holding a camera and filming, but when I wasn't filming I had it cranked up, and yeah, this thing really kicks it in. It's got a lot of power to it, and that power comes a lot quicker based on the torque sensing assist, which is nice. Bafang has a lot of models that use a cadence based, which is great for a lot of different reasons, but one thing it doesn't do especially well is when you are on a bike that you barely press on the pedals. That's where the torque sensor comes in, like this bike. You barely press on the pedals and it really kicks in. So it's pretty good. I like this a lot. The full suspension is really nice to have on a bumpy road like this, and in combination with the fat tires, it really provides a pretty comfortable ride. The only thing I'd like to see is perhaps a small suspension seat post. It's a small upgrade that you can get from a local bike shop, but it can make a pretty big difference if comfort is a big draw to a bike like this. Now, of course, you get a lot of grip on these tires so they can go in a lot of varied terrain, and the dual suspension helps you keep grip on the trail anyway. That's actually a really good point about suspension. A lot of people forget is that being able to keep surface area on the ground helps you maintain better control. So yeah, I think that for comfort reasons I would like to see a suspension seat post, but that's an easy fix. I mean, it's really not hard to put on here at all. But it's a really nice bike. I like it a lot. It has some pretty good accessories on it too, like the front fork is really good. This is a Bluto front fork, so it's nice. I like it a lot. Fits the wide tires perfectly. And I really like the extended grip attachment for the controls for the electric system. I'll show you that right here. Having the controls right there instead of having to go to the center of the bike is really good. I like that a lot. It helps you keep your mind on the road, so to speak, keep your eye on the ball. And you can do a lot of really good things with that because it becomes more intuitive. You become more in tune with the machine, so to speak. So yeah, that's really good. I'm liking this a lot. This is a lot of fun. You can tell I'm enjoying it. Okay guys, thanks for joining me on checking out the Biktrix Juggernaut Ultra FS. It's a really fun bike. If you want to see more of the Biktrix lineup, we're actually doing some more electric bike reviews on those bikes, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, you guys can check out the forums for Biktrix and compare this with other bikes at ElectricBikeReview.com. Thanks for watching and stay safe.